If you want to raise an emotionally healthy child, but you're not sure, you really want to, but you see the tantrums, you see the hitting, you see the kicking, you see the defiance, you see the bedtime stalling, you see all their behaviors, and you're like, I wonder if I'm raising an emotionally healthy child or how even to do so. Because I was not an emotionally healthy child and nobody taught me how to. If that is you, stay, because during this podcast episode, I'm going to share with you how to nurture your child's brain to raise an emotionally healthy child. Yes, because emotional health starts with brain health. Emotional health starts with how our brains are processing the experiences, the emotions, and the world around us, the relationships that we have with one another. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Parenting with Understanding podcast. This is your host, Marcela Collier. I'm a certified parenting coach, mom of twins. One of them is autistic, ADHD, and I'm autistic, ADHD as well. And my mission is to help parents break free from reactivity and raise secure, emotionally healthy children. Before we start with the topic of the week, if you've been listening to the Parenting with Understanding podcast for a while, would you give us a positive review? Just open the description, give us a positive review, hopefully 5 stars. If you're a return listener, if you're a returning viewer, it means that you've gotten value out of it. So your review will help us get to other parents who want to raise secure children, who want to be secure parents and break reactivity and raise their children with peace. So, this topic of how to raise an emotionally healthy child. But let's start from the beginning. What is emotional health? What is emotional health? Because there are a lot of books talking about emotional mental illness. But what is emotional health? So, emotional health is the capacity of integrating our our emotional experiences, to integrate our the things that we live, so we can have an adjusted internal and external life. So this definition was by Dr. Daniel Siegel. He's an author and a researcher in the topic of brain development and emotional health for kids. It's the ability of integrating our experiences and emotions and having a well adjusted life, internal life and external life. Now, my question for you is your child able to integrate their emotional their emotions and their experiences and having a balance internal and external life? If the answer is like my 2-year old would throw a tantrum, would have a meltdown over a broken banana, so I'm not sure. So if you are wondering about that, or if you're like, my son is autistic, ADHD, I don't know. Or my teenager talks back to me, I don't know if that's the definition of being emotionally healthy. So if you are asking those questions, I want to tell you that one thing is brain development and the behaviors that come with it. And another thing is raising a child who is having age appropriate emotional health. Age appropriate emotional health, that they're able to integrate their experiences and emotions at their level to have a balanced and well adjusted internal and external life. So it is age appropriate and expected for a 2-year old to have a tantrum or a broken banana. Now, the experiences that they have when that event happens, depending on how we respond, is what's going to shape their emotional well being, is what is going to ultimately shape their brain. So let's keep talking about this topic of emotional health, how to raise an emotionally healthy child. So, emotional health starts with the brain, how the brain is being shaped, and is being shaped by the experiences, the constant experiences that the child is having throughout their childhood, throughout their life. If they are integrated experiences, and we're going to talk about what integration is in a little bit, just bear with me so far, or if they're having insecure experiences, chaotic experiences. So imagine integrated experiences are things that are experiences that are being shaped by the parent in a way that feels secure to the child, whether the experience felt scary or not. So my twins went through a major loss 2 years ago. They lost their grandma. And it was a major loss because, according to adverse childhood experiences, the loss of a grandparent is one adverse childhood experience. And by the way, if you didn't know about this, there is a whole list of adverse childhood experiences, and your scoring on the likelihood of you developing emotional health issues, mental health concerns, or personality disorders are directly correlated to the amount of adverse childhood experiences you had. But not so much that, but as how well you were guided and covered during those experiences. So, what really hurts a child's emotional health beyond the experience itself is how covered, emotionally covered they were by their caregivers. So let's go back to what happened. They lost Oma. That's how they called her. She was German and she was an active member of their lives. She lived with us, so she was very close to them. They were 6 years old. Now they're nine when they lost Oma. And what happens? What happens? Integration, emotional health is not so much what happens to the child, but how the parent is helping the child process what happens to have an integrated experience in the brain. So if we would have, I'm going to tell you what we didn't do and then in a little bit what we did. If we would have dismissed it, such as, don't think about it, or don't be sad, she's in heaven now, she's with God, she's with Jesus, which is true, we believe that, we're Christians. But that alone won't help a child process and understand what they're feeling and what they're thinking about that very adverse childhood experience. Or, oh, okay, you're crying, let's go eat ice cream. And then you brush it under the rug with trying to cover a negative emotion, quote unquote, an uncomfortable emotion, grief, with a positive experience. So all these things, we do it with a good heart in order to protect our children from feeling big things. But in reality, we are not protecting them because they're still having those big emotions. They're just tucked in there and they're not being processed. So, what happens? That was me. When I was 6 years old, I lost my uncle, and I was not taught. I was not told anything. I was not even told he passed away. I saw my mom crying. I saw my mom secretive and talking low to other people, kind of like passing secrets to one another and not really telling me things. I went to the neighbor's house for days and I was there confused, feeling that something wrong really happened, that thinking possibly my family was splitting up. How come I'm in this neighbor's house for days? What's going on? So that's developing. I don't know how to call this. If integrated brain, the opposite of an integrated brain, the opposite of an integrated experience. So these lack of guidance and covering, emotional covering, is what takes to problems later. So I started hating my friends in school. I started failing grades. Right after that, that happened. So, how did I handle the loss of mama for the twins in a way that protects their emotional health? By integrating the experience in their brain and facing their big emotions instead of having them deal with it. One of them was asking a lot of questions. How did she die? How did she die? When did she die? What happens after she died? Where did she go? Is she in heaven? Is she not in heaven? And all those questions that children ask are just their best attempt to integrate the experience in their brain the best way possible. So, what did we do? We faced it instead of like, oh, don't think about it. Let's go eat ice cream if you're sad. Like, don't be sad. Let's go eat ice cream. You're going to feel better. She's in heaven. She's better there. Here, she was sick. Like, instead of all that, we did not sugarcoat it. When we disclosed the news to them, we said, yes, it was a very sad, it's very sad. And it's very normal if you feel sad. And it's normal if you miss her. And every time that you feel sad, you can let us know that you're sad and we can be sad together. Mommy's sad and mommy sometimes is going to cry. And I want you to know that I'm crying because I'm sad because I lost Oma. And if you want to cry, you can cry too. That helps integration in the brain. Because when he sees me crying, when he saw me crying, he had a coherent narrative of why I was crying instead of all the little stories that little kids make up in their minds, such as, I'm a bad boy, that's why mommy's crying, or something really scary that is really going to split my family. They make up fantastic stories in their head. And that's what contributes to their emotional well being or not emotional well being. So, do you see how integrating our children's experiences play a big part in raising an emotionally intelligent child? Because their brains are undeveloped, they are developing, they're still immature. Imagine that this is our brain. We have the prefrontal cortex, this is the logical part of our brain. We have the emotional brain, and we have the survival brain or the reptilian brain here. So when children feel big emotions, when they live stressful experiences, and it doesn't have to be as extreme as the death of a loved one, it could be that they are having extreme frustration over this puzzle piece that was not that they're not able to figure out. Or it could be that they feel left out by their peers when they went outside to play and then they said, no, you cannot be part of the team. That creates a lot of stress. Or it could be as simple as that the sibling dynamic is been kind of wonky lately, and then they're feeling stressed about not being able and not having conflict resolution skills or the communication skills to figure out their conflict peacefully. So anything could bring stress to a child's brain. So what happens? as adults have a more integrated brain depending on how we were raised. But just because our brain is fully mature, we can access the different compartments of our brain and integrate it, communicate to one another a lot easier than kids that don't have a fully developed brain. So when we go outside as adults and the neighbor doesn't say hi to us, as having a fully integrated brain, we might go to our logical thinking and say, hey, maybe the neighbor was distracted, or maybe she's having a rough day, nothing related, nothing about me. Or maybe when we go out there and we have an encounter with the neighbor and we feel anger and we feel frustration, we're not going to go and hit the neighbor. We're going to go to our impulse control area, which is in the logical side of our brain, and help us control impulses. Children don't have that kind of integration yet because their brains develop from the bottom up. Leo babies' brains start when they are born. They're born with their survival centers fully developed, which is their reptilian brain. They react and they respond instinctively. But then the brain starts developing from the bottom down, the survival brain and up to the next thing that starts developing is the emotional brain or the limbic system. And then the last thing that develops is the logical brain. And then we reach a fully developed brain, science says, in the mid 20s. So they cannot access and integrate their brains the same way. That's why they're having immature responses when they feel stress, when they're having a big experience, or when they're having a more day-to-day experience. Stress feels the same way, and then they manifest it in a non-integrated way. They don't hit, kick, scream, bite, and fight their sibling because they're rude kids or because you're a bad parent. They do it because they don't have a fully integrated brain. So let's go back to the topic. How do we raise an emotionally healthy child? Now that we know that they cannot fully integrate their brain, they need us to help them integrate their brain and their experiences. So when Oma died, we integrated their brain by giving them a coherent narrative or a logical explanation of why mommy was crying, why daddy was not as playful with them, how come the house was not as joyful and as bright as it normally is. That's logical integration. And when they had a lot of emotions about it, emotional integration is validating their feelings and connecting it with the experience. It makes sense that you feel sad because you lost Oma and mommy feels sad. So it is logical integration and emotional integration. And this integration is going to help them grow up as emotionally healthy individuals and integrated adults, emotionally healthy adults. So, moving on to more day to day experiences, let's just say when we yell, as a parenting coach, I talk to a lot of parents who feel really strongly and very guilty for yelling at their kids, and they almost move into these catastrophizing thoughts and they ruminate in it as, am I screwing up my child? I yelled again. Am I screwing them up? Am I traumatizing them? And remember that it's not what they live, is the lack of integration what really hurts a child. So I'm not saying for you to be yelling left and right, but if you do yell, repair is what helps the child make sense of why you yell, and not take it, not absorb it as because they are bad kids. So they will see, oh, okay, so it was because mommy didn't eat and she was hungry and that's why she yelled. I understand now. It's not because I am a bad kid. So do you see how integration looks like when it comes to repairing after yelling, repairing after doing something that we don't want to do with our kids? So that's part of raising an emotionally healthy child. Is not being perfect. A perfect parent is never losing it, is not always having it together. It's giving them a coherent narrative when it does happen. One of our coaching clients told me, I have twins and I have this raising thought and anxiety that when I'm helping one of my twins, let's just say changing their diaper, and the other one is crying, and he has to wait for me to be done changing the twins diaper, that he's going to feel abandoned. He's going to get hurt by that, as if I'm leaving him with his big emotions on his own. And I'm like, no, if you integrate it. Right now, mom is changing your brother's diaper, but I'm gonna be there as soon as I can in 2 minutes. I know it's uncomfortable. I know that you're feeling A, B, C, Y, Z. I know that you're feeling sad, angry, whatever they're feeling, frustrated. I'm gonna be there. And for them to see that you actually go there. So it is not what hurts the child is not crying, it is not having an integration and not having an adult who is consistent at responding to them. If you leave your child crying on their own all the time, then yes, I would say yes. That would not be good for their emotional health. But if they're crying a little bit because you're changing the twins diaper, that's different, you know? And then you go back to them, then the reparation is there. If you're like Marcela, but I lose my I don't want to say the bad word. I lose my temper often. I was gonna say, as you know, I lose my temper often. I I repair so much, and I'm very aware of saying I'm sorry, but I just don't know if my child believes me anymore. I've had parents who come to coaching telling me that I don't know if they believe me anymore. That's why I signed up for coaching, because I want to break free from yelling. If that is you and you want to become a secure parent who is a lot more consistent with your responses so you can raise an emotionally healthy child, I have an invitation for you. I have a free class that you can access right now on my website at hicparenting.com, hicparenting.com. And it's in the description or in the comment below if you want to access it right now. And I'm going to show you the method, the 4-step system that I walk through with all my coaching clients to break them out of the reactive pattern so they can so they can raise emotionally healthy children, so they can be secure parents for their children. Go through the class, start integrating it in your family, and you are going to start seeing results. Many parents tell me in the first week that they reduce yelling by 70%. Imagine that you feel calmer 70% of the time throughout your week. Will it be worth 30 minutes of your time, which is the length of that class, to go through it, learn? And if you need more nuanced support, more personalized support, we will tell you in the free class, on that class, on how to access it. But that's the first step. Access that class, gain the system, and start applying it in your family. So let's go to is it really true that an adult could be a non-integrated adult? The answer is yes. You see them a lot. I see them a lot on TikTok and in real life. I was scrolling on TikTok when I saw a lady. She was a young adult. Her brain is for sure fully developed. She didn't get the right order at a drive-through, and she jumped over the window in her car, through the window of her car, went inside the window of the drive-through and started fighting all the cooks in the place. Is that a person with an integrated brain? It is not. Because integration, imagine Dr. Daniel Siegel described it as a river. So imagine that emotional health or integration is a river. And then at the opposites, or at the extremes of this river, there are two there are the two opposites of lack of integration, which is rigidity. Every time I do this, the balloons go up. If you are watching on YouTube, there are some balloons that went up on the screen, and it's every time I do the V sign. So at one side, we have rigidity, and at the other side, we have chaos. Rigidity and chaos are the two signs of lack of integration. Integration or emotional health is flowing in the middle, being able to adapt to change, being able to receive the wrong order and still being flexible enough to say, okay, I received the wrong order. I could either be happy with the wrong order, or I could just easily go back to the lady in the window and tell her to change my order, right? That's flexibility. Emotional health is not rigidity, it's flexibility. And emotional health is not chaos. Chaos, going through drive-through windows and fighting cooks inside the kitchen. That's chaos. Lack of chaos. Harmony is saying, okay, I feel a lot frustrated. I've been waiting here for a long time to get my order, and they still got it wrong. I can manage my emotions. I can get it together, and I can go in, park on a safe spot, park on a loud spot, go in the restaurant and stand up for myself in an integrated way, in an emotionally healthy way. So that's emotional health, flowing in the middle. When you go from rigidity to chaos back to rigidity, that's the opposite of emotional health. And you're like, Marcela, but my kids are kind of like that. They go from rigidity, everything has to be my way or the highway, to chaos and tantrums and meltdowns. Again, remember, their brain is not fully developed, but your brain is. And because your brain is, your job is to help the rigidity and chaos go back to its course, into integration. If they're in chaos, we drive them back to harmony. If they're in rigidity, we drive them back to flexibility. That's basically our parenting with understanding coaching program in a nutshell. Equipping parents with the skills to keep their children in their flow of emotional health, in the flow of flexibility and harmony. So, to raise an emotionally healthy child is simple yet not easy. It is simple yet not easy. It is as simple as saying it is helping our children flow the waters of harmony and flexibility. And when they go to rigidity and when they go to chaos, we bring them back to harmony and flexibility. But it is not easy to do if we go back and forth ourselves, from rigidity to chaos, from chaos back to rigidity. The beginning of our children's emotional health is our own emotional health, is our own integration, is our own emotional well being. If this podcast episode gave you a lot of understanding on how to raise an emotionally healthy child, would you share it with a friend? Just send it right now to a friend, to a coworker, to your mom, to your sister, and let them know, hey, Listen to this. This is gold on how to raise an emotionally healthy child. And remember that it only takes understanding of yourself and of your children's needs to raise a secure child. I'll see you next time.